Hello and welcome to 3 Ages D&D. Today we're talking about bandits. The road to Durrow hugs the tree line for 3 uneasy miles. At any other time and in any other circumstance, the PCs would not think to travel this route alone, but they must get to the Worm Festival before nightfall. Suddenly the inevitable happens. Volleys of arrows drop around the player characters as well-armoured heavies step out onto the road. The PC fighter holds aloft a signed letter along with a bag of gold. Last spring your master promised us that we could travel safely on this road in exchange for a fine of 10 gold. But the fighter's words are met with a chorus of haughty laughter. We have a new master now, and he's put a bounty on your lives. Bandits are a staple of Dungeons & Dragons. They're flavorful, they're historically realistic, and players hate them. Today I would like to talk about some of the variations we might consider when thinking about this classic foe. Part 1. It's just business. Most bandits consider robbery as their job. Their goal is to eat well, be merry, and survive in the wilds for as long as they can. They are not driven by higher purpose or ideology. Bandits will avoid attacking strong targets that can defend themselves. They will avoid attacking high-status people for fear of a backlash from the authorities, and they will always retreat when a battle goes against them. The purpose of a bandit attack is to create such an overwhelming and obvious advantage that their foes will be forced to surrender. And if they don't surrender, the bandits can use their advantage to deal with them in a single round or two, with the option of retreating if things go wrong. Part 2. Players hate bandits. One of the main features of a bandit attack is that the players can bypass it by spending money. However, the players will often interpret this as the DM unfairly levying attacks against them, and that they would rather die than give you the satisfaction. I do see bandit attacks along with some other random encounters as unfair. That is to say that it is an encounter that the players have little control over whether or not it happens. There are some ways to think about and mitigate this kind of unfair encounter. 1. Have the players be aware of the risk of being attacked by bandits. 2. Use a random table. If the players know that you're using a table to determine these kinds of encounters, they are less likely to see it as the result of DM vindictiveness. Randomness is just part of the game. 3. Make fighting and paying tribute each valid options. This is quite hard to balance, especially at low level, where the players will most likely encounter bandits, and where they have the fewest resources to manage. Have the bandits demand a fee that the players can actually afford and might be expected to pay. Have the players be in a position where they could fight the bandits, but doing so might deplete resources that they need for more important encounters later on. A counterexample to this would be to have the bandits attack the players after they have completed a dungeon and are now physically depleted and laden down with treasure. 4. Lean into the hate. Not everything in the game is fully under the player's control. Sometimes characters get into situations not of their making. Having the players hate the bandits can spur a satisfying revenge plot. As a note on unfair mechanics, I don't think that they are or should be a part of most D&D campaigns. If you want to run bandits in a more straightforward way, one option is to have them emerge from the trees and attack the players with the intent to kill them. This way you can balance the encounter as appropriate. Part 3. What bandits want. Another thing to note about bandits is that they are often more interested in stealing items rather than gold. Items which may be difficult to acquire in the wilderness, including such mundane items as cooking pots and bedrolls. And one thing in particular the bandits are always on the lookout for is horses. Some other specific examples might be a bandit mage who wants to rob a wizard of their spell component pouch. A group of goblins who will allow safe passage in exchange for 2 crossbows and 100 crossbow bolts. The not-so-merry men who are always on the lookout for fine wines and spirits, and the bandits who will allow safe passage for the party, but who want to borrow the cleric in order to heal the chief who has fallen gravely ill. I think that thinking about what the bandits want can also help mitigate the issue of the players feeling hard done by when they encounter bandits. Players may be open to perform some minor quests for the bandits, or trade away a couple of bottles of wine. Players will feel smart if they travel, taking items that they know in advance they can trade with the bandits. They will feel even smarter if they are able to negotiate with and develop a good relationship with the bandits. Maybe the players are willing to sell things to the bandits in exchange for the mostly useless gold that they have managed to accumulate. All this depends on the personalities of your player characters. Part 4. Bandit Tactics. Combat encounters in the wilderness can be among the most deadly that the players will face during a campaign, and encounters with bandits are no exception. Bandits are often weaker in their individual stats than the player characters, but they can easily make up for this with strategy. The following are some examples of how bandits can attempt to gain an overwhelming advantage. DMs beware. 1. Ambush. Bandits choose advantageous terrain to attack from. They will utilize ranged weapons and attack from cover and high ground. They will set up roadblocks and attempt to prevent their victims from retreating. A successful ambush gives the bandits the ability to attack the PCs before they've had a chance to respond, and they will use this to coordinate their attacks in order to take out spellcasters and healers. 2. Control. Bandits want to subdue and disarm their opponents, to force them to concede as quickly as possible. Bandits can be armed with ropes and nets, and weapons that are specialized for tripping or disarming. Bandit spellcasters specialize in magic such as sleep, grease, and hold person. 3. Mobility. This one is true for a lot of other wilderness encounters as well. It so happens that most creatures you might expect to find in the wild are faster than the PCs on foot. It is this lack of mobility of low-level characters that can make wilderness encounters so deadly, as the PCs will often have no recourse to retreat when things go against them. The extent of the bandits' mobility is determined by their access to horses. 4. Numerical Advantage. Bandits attack en masse in a coordinated fashion. It may be possible to encounter groups of 20 or more bandits, all attacking at once against surprise targets. Part 5. Early, mid, and late campaign. Breaking mechanics down into early, mid, and late game can give us a different view of how they might be utilised, as well as how they fit into our broader campaign. For this example, imagine the players begin the campaign in some lawless backwater filled with bandits. In our example, bandit attacks are frequent, and travel is difficult for anyone not under a heavy escort. The player characters are vulnerable and have a hard time earning decent money after constantly having to pay off bandits. What's more, the presence of bandits affects the wealth of the entire region. Wealthy people avoid coming here, and it can be difficult for players to purchase even the basic supplies that they need for adventuring. As the campaign progresses and we reach the crux between early and midpoint, the player characters have grown in power and no longer provide an easy target for the bandits. They may also have acquired horses or some other means of improved travel, which allows them to more easily outrun and invade the bandits. Eventually, the PCs will locate the main bandit camp, a ruined fort containing 40 bandits, and their chief. After the players have defeated the chief and scattered the remaining bandits, bandit attacks significantly drop in frequency, making the whole region much safer, which brings increased trade and prosperity. For the PCs, this increased prosperity means better access to NPCs such as merchants that cater specifically to adventurers. By the time we reach the late game, bandits are no longer a concern to the player characters. The PCs are simply too strong for the bandits to take on, and they have access to late game modes of travel, such as flying mounts and teleportation. However, if war is part of your late campaign, then many of the ideas we have talked about come up again. Historical armies did not move under massive supply chains like modern ones. Instead, soldiers might be expected to fend for themselves, effectively turning into bandits, but on a much larger and more disruptive scale. Another late game example of something that could resemble bandits would be a creature such as a powerful dragon. Dragons want treasure and tribute even more than bandits, and they are capable of holding an entire town to ransom under the threat of destruction. Part 6. Conclusion. Bandits are a trope in D&D for good reason, and I hope that some of what I've talked about can help inspire you to come up with ways to utilise them. If you want a couple of movie recommendations for films including bandits, I'd recommend Seven Samurai and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Seven Samurai is a film that follows the logic of a D&D campaign so closely that you could almost run it as one without changing a thing, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is a film that mythologizes the transition of a lawless region into a civilized one, and the heroic individuals whose actions bring about this change. Well, that's all for today on 3 Ages D&D. I'll see you guys next time.